آدرنالین بیشتر میخوان.
نابود کرد. نابود کرد.
Footage captures the exact moment when two Iranian missiles struck Israel's Haifa oil refinery. The missiles moved so fast that Israel's defense systems struggled to intercept them, and explosions lit up the night as they detonated near the industrial zone. Iran claims it used Khaybar Shakan ballistic missiles in direct retaliation for Israeli strikes on Tehran's oil depots and refineries.
Now the U.S. is sending 3 Navy warships and more than 2,000 Marines to the Middle East. What more are you hearing about that?
Diane, yes, we have new reporting that 2,200 Marines based in Japan will be transported across on 3 amphibious ships, which is pretty standard. It's called an amphibious ready group, and they normally patrol inside the Indo-Pacific area, which is Asia. But instead, they have been ordered and redirected towards the Middle East. What is important about this is that these are ground forces. We've talked about ships, we've talked about fighter aircraft, but this is a ground force that also includes aviation. They also have F-35s and V-22 Osprey aboard these ships. But from what we understand, this doesn't mean that the United States is preparing a ground force to go into Iran. This is just a capability, an option that is available to military planners because they always want to have as many forces available as needed. And these Marine units, this 31st MU as it's called, brings a lot of options and a lot of variability to the table. Now the question is, how long will they be there? And is it possible that we may see further of these units headed out to the Middle East as well?
And Louis, what are you watching for next?
Well, one of the things that we've talked about is what happens to the uranium stockpile. We've heard shifting narratives about how the United States is going to try maybe to use ground forces to try to seize some of the 430 kilograms of enriched uranium that Iran possesses, which most of it is believed to be underground at those facilities that were bombed by the United States.
9 in 10 Iranian oil barrels pass through this small patch of land. Karg Island has continued shipping throughout the American barrage on Iran, spared until Friday night.
At my direction, the United States Central Command executed one of the most powerful bombing raids in the history of the Middle East and totally obliterated every military target in Iran's crown jewel, Karg Island.
The island in the north of the Persian Gulf is home to vast reservoirs and oil terminals. US leader Donald Trump says those installations were not targeted in the bombing, but threatened to reconsider if Iran interferes with shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian media also said no oil infrastructure was damaged, reporting hits on military bases, a helicopter hangar, and the airport control tower. Iran's oil exports are its lifeline, and Tehran has threatened a new level of retaliation.
Infrastructure belonging to oil companies across the region that have American shares or cooperate with America will be immediately destroyed and reduced to ashes.
A fifth of the world's oil passes from the Persian Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz in large part to Asia. The passage is mostly closed while Iran launches attacks on neighboring states and threatens to strike tankers. Trump has promised the US Navy will escort ships through the strait. Meanwhile, oil prices continue to skyrocket.
War with Iran. Fire, smoke coming from the U.S. Embassy compound in Baghdad this morning. Iraqi security officials say a missile hit a helipad. The embassy has been repeatedly targeted by missiles and drones from Iran-backed militias, and the government has urged all U.S. citizens in the area to remain vigilant. As Iran shows no signs of backing down in its attacks on the Strait of Hormuz, the Pentagon is set to move additional warships and U.S. Marines to that area. And President Trump says the U.S. Navy will soon begin escorting tankers from the oil-exporting nations of the Persian Gulf through that critical shipping lane.
President, when will the Navy start escorting tankers to the Straits of Hormuz? How long now do you think the war is likely to last?
I can't tell you that. I mean, I have my own idea, but what good does it do? It'll be as long as it's necessary. They've been decimated. Their country's in bad shape. The whole thing is collapsing.
The president also says the U.S. bombed, quote, every military target on Iran's Karg Island, which handles nearly all of the country's crude exports. Since the war began, nearly 3 weeks ago now, oil prices have soared more than 40%. Nationwide, gas prices have gone up more than 60 cents per gallon.
The Pentagon plans to send up to 5,000 more sailors and Marines to the Middle East. This news comes as the president says things are running ahead of schedule in the nation's war with Iran. Meanwhile, security for the Oscars is being beefed up as a result of potential security threats linked to the conflict. CBS News' Willie James Inman has more.
Heading into the weekend, President Trump said the war with Iran is running ahead of schedule.
So the situation in Iran is going very well. A lot of big hits today, a lot of big wins today.
This comes as the president says the Navy will soon escort tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, a critical waterway through which a fifth of the world's oil flows. He later added many countries would help secure the waterway in coordination with the U.S. The U.S. military on Friday bombed Iran's Karg Island, striking a blow to the country's vital oil network. President Trump shared footage of the attack on social media. The island, which is located in the Persian Gulf, serves as Iran's main oil export terminal. Uncertainty in the Middle East has led to higher gas prices in the U.S., prompting a mixture of reactions.
I think they're quite expensive right now, especially for $4.30, 87. That's a lot.
It's fair market value. And so what's fair is what capitalism determines at that given time. And that's what the price is now. It's fair when it's low. It's fair when it's high. There's a reason for it.
CBS News has learned the Pentagon is sending up to 5,000 sailors and Marines to the Middle East as the president projects confidence.
We are in a position of dominance that nobody's ever seen before.
In Baghdad overnight, smoke was seen rising from the U.S. Embassy compound after a missile hit a helipad. The embassy has been repeatedly targeted by Iran. In the U.S., security concerns over the war have spilled into Sunday's Oscar ceremony, with extra security patrols being stationed around the ceremony site. Willie James Inman, CBS News.
This is the announcement being played on Iranian state TV, officially announcing the death of security chief Ali Larijani. The IDF saying they eliminated Iran's de facto leader in an Israeli airstrike. And these new dramatic images coming from Tehran, reaching flames in the streets. Videos circulating online show Israel hitting Iranian police checkpoints and vehicles in Tehran. An Israeli intelligence source tells ABC News Iranians themselves are now sharing locations where regime militia are on patrol for the Israelis to strike.
We're doing very well, I will say. We're knocking them for a loop. They can't have a nuclear weapon, and they now understand that very strongly.
This as President Trump's top counterterrorism official has resigned over the war in Iran. He claims, quote, Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. Joe Kent writing, I cannot, in good conscience, support the ongoing war in Iran. It is clear we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. President Trump has long supported Kent's career, but now is responding.
And I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security. I didn't know him well.
It comes as the president is lashing out at America's NATO allies who are refusing his demand that they help reopen the Strait of Hormuz, though also saying we don't need them.
So we helped them, and they didn't help us, and I think that's a very bad thing for NATO.
And tonight, CENTCOM saying they used, quote, multiple 5,000-pound deep penetrator munitions on hardened Iranian missile sites along Iran's coastline near the Strait of Hormuz. They say Iranian anti-ship cruise missiles there posed a risk to international shipping in the strait. Alex Stone, ABC News, Los Angeles.
And this comes as Iran retaliated overnight after Israel killed 2 high-ranking Iranian officials. ABC's Patrick Ravel has the latest from Doha.
Overnight, Iran launching new strikes on Israel. These apparent cluster warheads seen falling over Tel Aviv. Israeli officials say an elderly couple in this building were killed by shrapnel from a missile interception. In Iraq, flames also rising after the U.S. embassy compound in Baghdad again came under attack. Hours after an earlier wave of drones, air defense here seen shooting one down. Meanwhile, the US taking new action in the Strait of Hormuz, dropping multiple 5,000-pound so-called bunker buster bombs on hardened Iranian missile sites along the strait that could be used to target ships. But the waterway remains virtually shut down, choking off global oil shipments. US allies in Europe are refusing President Trump's request for military help reopening the strait, saying this is not their war. Trump now insisting the US doesn't need Europe's help.
We don't need too much help, and we don't need any help, actually.
In Tehran, the regime shaken after Israeli strikes killed 2 of its top surviving leadership. Iran now confirming the death of National Security Chief Ali Larijani, widely seen as one of the regime's de facto leaders. Also killed the commander of Iran's feared Basij militia. Both were key in the violent crackdown on Iranian protesters in January that killed thousands.
I would argue the death of Ali Larijani is just as significant for Iran as the death of Ali Khamenei, the former supreme leader. This alone won't make it collapse, but I don't think that Iran can continue to lose leaders at this level for weeks on end.
Israel now also launching drone attacks on dozens of security checkpoints in Tehran, seeking to further weaken the regime inside the country.
A growing question here is whether US ground troops might be used in any operation to try to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. An expeditionary unit of 2,500 Marines is expected to arrive here in the next 2 weeks. Patrick Reevell, ABC News, Doha.
When I look out here across the opening to the Strait of Hormuz, especially at nighttime when they have their lights on, I see dozens of ships waiting for what they hope would be a safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. There might be over 100 ships waiting here, and on the other side, inside the Persian Gulf, hundreds of ships are waiting to somehow make their way through what has become a very perilous passage through the Strait of Hormuz. All of this brought about by Iranian threats that they would attack any ship that is in any way affiliated with the United States or Israel or any of its allies. But maritime and trade data platforms do show that some ships get through. 89 ships altogether since the start of the war have got through the Strait of Hormuz. So who does get through? Well, first of all, out of those 89 ships, 1/5 are affiliated with Iran. There are also ships that are affiliated with India and Pakistan that have managed to make their way during wartime through the Strait of Hormuz, and other ships have been heading to China. But essentially the situation that all of these ships are facing is that Iran right now is deciding who gets through the Strait of Hormuz safely and who gets threatened with possible attacks.